Mm, Today I'm gonna talk about one financial institution in the course Banking and Insurance Finance. I chose to talk about Asian Development Bank, ADB. So the content of my presentation will be as follows. First, I will talk about the introduction of ADB and then briefly about history. Then I'm gonna tell clearly what kind of function that ADB serves, its vision, then its vision and its mission. Also, I will show you what is the structure of ADB, what is the challenge and the strategy, and at the end, how can ADB help? How ADB was established. ADB was a regional development bank established on the 22nd August 1966, with the headquarters is in Metro Manila, Philippines. And its purpose when it was founded was to facilitate the economic development in Asia. About the members, the bank admits the member of the United Nations Economic and Social Commissions for Asia the Pacific, and non-regional developed countries. From 31 members as the establishment, now ADB has 67 members, on which are 48 from 48 are from Asia and Pacific, and 19 are from outside. And also ADB was modeled closely on the World Bank and has a similar weighted voting system where votes are distributed in proportion with members' capital subscriptions. In the history part, we will look at ADB in three main phases. The first one is 1960 and then 1970s. And the last one is 1980s until now. In the 1960s, the Asian Development Bank was conceived in the early 1960s as a financial institution that would be a nation in character and foster economic growth and cooperation in one of the poorest regions in the world. A resolution passed at MCAEC, which stands for Ministerial Conference on Asian Economic Cooperation, held by the United Nations Economic Commission for Asia and the Far East in the 1963, said that the vision on the way to become reality. During the 1960s, ADB also focused much of its assistance on food production and rural development. The second phase, 1970s. So when the world suffered its first oil price shock, ADB increased its support for energy projects, especially those promoting the development of domestic energy sources in member countries. Another main event in 1970 is ADB first bond issue in Asia is worth $16.7 million. And a major landmark was the establishment in 1974 of the Asian Development Fund to provide low-interest loans to ADB poorest members. The third phase that I want to mention is from 1980s until now. This is called expanding and developing phase. In the wake of the second oil crisis, ADB continued its support to infrastructure development, particularly energy projects. ADB also increased its support to social infrastructure, including projects involving microfinance, the environment, education, urban planning, health issues, and helping women and girls. To be more specific, in 1982, ADB opened its first field office in Bangladesh to bring operations closer to the people in need. Later in the decade, ADB began working with non-government organizations to help disadvantaged groups. Also remember in 2003, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, or say SARS, epidemic hit the region, making it clear that fighting infectious disease requires regional cooperation. So ADB began providing support at nation and regional levels to help countries more effectively respond to this influenza and the growing threat of HIV and AIDS. So we can say that it provides support at the national and regional levels. It increased annual lending and grant approvals. So while the speed and the strength of its economy recovery surprised many, the region still faced daunting challenges and remained home to 2/3 of the world's poor and growing problem of inequality. So this increasing gap between the rich and the poor focused ADB on the need to promote inclusive growth in the region. So the functions of ADB is to provide loans and equity investment to its developing member countries or DCMs. It also provides technical assistance for the planning and execution of the development projects and program and for advisory services. ADB also promotes and facilitates investment of public and private capital. Finally, it assists in coordinating development policies and plans. In terms of vision and mission, ADB's vision is an Asia-Pacific region free of poverty, and its mission is to help its developing member countries reduce poverty and improve the quality of life of their people. As we can see from slide 7 is the structure of ADB. On the top is the board of governors, under there is the board of directors, whose job is for evaluation and compliance review. Under it is a president, managing director general. It will look at different sectors like under president we have like vice president knowledge management, vice president operation 1, vice president operation 2, vice president in finance administration, and the president will also look at a strategy policy, regional economic integration. So as we can see in these boxes. So right now the president is Haruhiko Kuroda. Its headquarters is in Manila, Philippines. It is having 67 members. Among those, 48 are from region and 19 is from non-region members. It has in total 2,997 employees. Even though ADB is on the path of developing and expanding, it still faces a lot of challenges. So in this slide, I will point out some of the challenges that ADB is facing. So ADB remains home to half of the world's poor population. 451 million in developing Asia live on $1.9 a day. 260 million people lack access to improved drinking water supply, and 1.5 billion people are still without sanitation access. 1 out of 24 children dies before reaching the age of 5. In terms of strategy, as I mentioned at the beginning, its main strategy is to commit in reducing poverty by regional integration, by aiming for regional integration, environmentally sustainable growth, and inclusive economic growth. In this slide, we will go into more detail of ADB's loan portfolio. As we can see in this pie, the biggest portion is from People's Republic of China, 25.4%. This is by borrower. Next is India, 24.2%. Comes after that is Indonesia, Pakistan, Philippines, and Vietnam. And the amount of loans outstanding is 57 billion gross. Undisbursed effective loans is 28 billion. Sovereign is at 79 billion, which is 93%, and non-sovereign is at 6 billion, which is 7%. So in this slide, I'm going to talk briefly about the assistance that ADB provided for the people in the region. According to statistics on the page, ADB's total lending in 2016, including co-financing, has reached to $31.7 billion. So it's 18% increase compared to 2015. So among this total includes 17.47 billion in approvals for loans and grants, $169 million for technical assistance, and 14.06 billion for co-financing, which increased by a record of 31% over 2015. Disbursement also reached a new high of 12.26 billion in 2016. Private sector operations reached 2.5 billion. Apart from its own funds, ADB private sector operations also generated a record of $5.84 billion in co-financing and a 1.2 billion increase from 2015. So also, it should be noted that ADB raises funds through bond issues on the world's capital market. They also rely on members' contributions, retain earnings from lending operations, the repayment of the loans. In the sources slide, you can see on the websites that I took to get the information from. Mostly they are from the ADB website themselves. And thank you for listening.